Welcome to Games from Folktales, a podcast that mixes historical research and tabletop role-playing settings. I'm your host, Timothy Ferguson. This week, a second thought on urban wisps. This is a short piece compared to some of the others for the Magonomia Bestiary Kickstarter series. My goals for the wisps were straightforward, so I got there without a lot of surplus material. When I wrote the Urban Wisps for the Magonomia Bestiary, I wanted to introduce the Royal Exchange and suggest that the creatures were the source of the Gruen transfer, which blights shoppers in malls to this day. The Gruen transfer is a psychological trick, a sort of confusion or trance-like state, which is an involuntary response to deliberately included architectural features. In the real world, it causes people to wander about and impulse buy. I first knew I'd missed a trick on Urban Wisps when I was listening to a quatrain by Madison Corwine. Corwine was an author from Kentucky whose work was in the same sort of vein as Shelley Keats. He wrote around the turn of the 20th century and has some right to claim that T.S. Eliot beat him for the idea of the wasteland. There are several pieces which might be useful for games like Ars Magica and Magonomia in Corwine's collections, because he likes playing with the idea that there are forces behind natural features. Before you go wading in, and they won't be included in this podcast, I'd like to make a quick note. With Corwine, you're zipping through pastorals, stealing monsters, and then suddenly you hit a poem about the laws and methods of the Ku Klux Klan. Some people have tried to defend his views on race, because he doesn't actually say the we in the poem includes himself, but it's a sudden shock to go from one tone to the other. There are a couple of other works which pretty clearly put him over into the cross-burning side of society. That being said, he's been dead for over 100 years. No one's going to profit from this quotation. Moths and fireflies. Since Fancy taught me in her school of spells, I know her tricks. These are not moths at all, nor fireflies, but masking elfland bells, whose link boys torch them to Titania's ball. Let's unpack that. A link boy is a child who is paid to escort a pedestrian at night and provide illumination. Sometimes they lead the person to where they can find a sedan chair, see previous episodes about carriages, and then they follow the sedan chair, and when the chair gets to its end point, the child accompanies the person to their door. The link in the name is a sort of cotton which is used in their torches. The name appears in Shakespeare, so we know it's in period for Magonomia. Falstaff says to Bardolph, "Thou hast saved me 1,000 marks in links and torches, walking with thee in the night betwixt tavern and tavern," because Bardolph's face is constantly glowing red from alcoholism. A mark is 2/3 of a pound, so that's serious money. Hiring link boys was sometimes dangerous because you could be led astray into ambushes with footpads in dark alleys. This to me seemed a perfect way to envision urban wisps, leading people into danger. Some people had personal link boys to prevent this occurring, but the position was considered low and menial, and maybe the source of the expression "can't hold a candle to X." So you can't hold a candle to Fred, meaning you aren't even fit to be a link boy for Fred. I was reading a lot about John Stowe at the time. It seemed to me having a friendly urban wisp essentially meant you had a safe link boy who could guide you about the streets. If I'd thought of it in time, I'd have made the wisp extra have the power to always lead the character home, which is useful for the lost and inebriated. It also seems like a good marker for my theoretical order of urban magicians based on Stowe's work. They all carry lamps with surprisingly active flames. Corwine has another couple of poems about wisps which give us variants on what they think can do. In Fenfire, he posits a spirit that loves as it destroys. The misty rain makes dim my face. The night's black cloak is o'er me. I tread the dripping cypress place, a flickering light before me. Out of the death of leaves that rot and ooze and weedy water, my form was breathed to haunt this spot, death's immaterial daughter. The owl that swoops upon the yew, the snake that lairs within it, have seen my wild face flashing blue for one fantastic minute. But should you follow where my eyes, like some pale lamp, decoy you, beware, lest suddenly I rise with love that shall destroy you. Again, in the Millwater, he has wisps of sprites that are doing something sneaky and idyllic until you see beneath the superficial. For this one, I'm going to pop in a LibriVox recording, because the reader has a better voice than I do.
The Millwater by Madison Caywin. Read for LibriVox.org by William Mosqueda. The water flag and wild cane grow round banks wherein the sunbeams sow ephemeral gold when, on its shores, the wind sighs through the sycamores. In one green angle just in reach, between a willow tree and a beach, moss-grown and leaky lies a boat the thick-grown lilies keep afloat. And through its waters half awake, slow swims the spotted water snake, and near its edge like some gray streak stands gaunt the still fly up the creek. Between the lily pads and blooms the water spirits set their looms, and weave lace-like light that dims the glimmering leaves of underlimbs. Each lily is the hiding place of some dim wood thing's elvish face that watches you with gold-green eyes where bubbles of its breathing rise. I fancy when the waxing moon leans through the trees in the dreams of June, and when the black bat slants its wing, and lonelier the green frogs sing. I fancy when the whirlpool in some old tree sings wildly shrill, with glowworm eyes that dot the dark, each holding high a firefly spark. To torch its way the wood imps come, and some float rocking here, and some unmoor the lily leaves and oar around the old boat by the shore. They climb through oozy weeds and moss, they swarm its rotting sides and toss their firefly torches o'er its edge, or hang them in the tangled sedge. The boat is loosed, the moon is pale, around the dam they slowly sail, upon its bow to pilot it a jack-o'-lantern flame doth sit. Yes, I have seen it all in dreams. Naught is forgotten, naught, it seems, the strangled face, the matted hair, drowned of the woman trailing there.
Your saga may vary.